Welcome guys to another chess analysis video. Now, unless you've been sleeping under a rock, you've seen that Hikaru recently lost to a kid from Azerbaijan in a kind of important blitz game. Now, his name is Khagan Ahmad, and today we're gonna break down what really happened. Hope you learned some stuff and yeah, buckle up. So this game was part of the World Blitz Team Championship held a few days ago. Hikaru was the white pieces, and of course, both players are gonna start playing very fast. We have e4, c5, knight f3 and d6, classical Sicilian, and after bishop b5 check, black blocks with the bishop. We have queen retakes, and now both sides are just gonna naturally develop. We have castles, knight f6, Hikaru here takes a little think, he goes d3, just opening the bishop. We have knight c6, knight bd2 by Hikaru, just going for the classic plan, rerouting the knight to the king side. We have e6, c3, bishop e7, rook e1, both players just getting some presence here in the center. Black here takes a little think, he just takes his king to safety. Hikaru in the meantime continues the knight maneuver. Now black goes for b5, which is interesting, gaining some very useful space on the queen side, but Hikaru here responds with the principal d4. When your opponent plays in the flank, it's usually a good idea to open the center, so black attempts to stop it. Here he plays d5, but things start to get tricky, because white here plays knight e5, hitting the queen and the knight. Now taking the knight looks good, it doubles, the white pawns, but then the knight would be forced to a very awkward spot. So basically black would be crowding his position completely, so in the game the queen sidesteps to c7, and after an exchange of knights, Hikaru is able to get e5, attack the knight and lock up the center. Now with such advanced pawns, clearly is preparing a kingside attack. Knight goes to d7 and boom, there he goes, queen g4 by Hikaru, and the pieces are starting to fly near the black king. Ahmad needs to be very careful here. I mean, he's playing at 2700, of course he's feeling the nerves. He tried rook fc8, looking to use the c file soon, and create some counterplay. But most likely Hikaru is just gonna continue with his plan of attacking the vulnerable king, and there he goes, knight g3, already with some evil ideas, because knight h5 can come in some lines, and things are really starting to get risky for Ahmad. He cannot stand still, he has to do something, and it's clear he's taking a think, and he starts by opening the c file. He takes the pawn on d4, but bishop h6, powerful intermediate move by Hikaru, threatening checkmate, and we need to pause here, because black would love to play bishop f8, right? This would protect everything and the structure of the pawns near the king remains strong. But then Hikaru could actually sacrifice the bishop. Bishop takes on g7, sorry. And after knight h5, the game is pretty much over. So Ahmad, of course, sees this. So the only move really to stay alive is g6, which weakens the pawn, but at least there's no mate. And Hikaru immediately retakes on d4. But the question remains, how does Ahmad get some counterplay here? Now he even has some weaknesses around his king, so things are not looking good. He tries queen c2, pressuring b2, but Hikaru simply plays rook d2, attacks the queen, defends the pawn, and it looks like it didn't do much. So he has to go queen d3, but again rook d2 now, simply kicking the queen out, and now we see queen to c4. And again, we have to pause. This is a very important moment. It seems like the queen was just running, so Hikaru immediately plays h4, continuing with the attack, but no. Actually, this was a trick by the kid, and all of a sudden, he takes a little moment, but knight takes on e5 comes. The knight cannot be taken, because of course the queen would fall, and Hikaru, Hikaru nods, because he clearly didn't see that, and all of a sudden a very important pawn is gone. Now the queen has to move. Hikaru is debating which square to put it. So he plays queen f4, but now knight d3 by Ahmad immediately, which, you know, is playing a bit with fire. It hits the queen, but the knight is almost trapped here. Better was knight d7, running for safety. Now Hikaru has to keep the pressure on the knight and keep chasing this knight that is so weirdly placed. So he's taking a little thing. Let's see if he can find it. Because as you can see, the knight doesn't really have a lot of squares. So it can end up getting trapped, and he finds it queen e3. The Ahmad immediately runs away. He tries going knight to b4. And now Hikaru is evaluating the weaknesses around Ahmad's king. And he's starting to get confident again. Because with that powerful bishop on h6, and he calculates queen e5, which forces bishop f8. And now after the black king retakes, Hikaru was counting on queen h8. And again, we have to pause the video here, because, you know, if queen h8 now, king goes to e7, we take the pawn. But then here comes the part Hikaru definitely missed, because now after queen g7, we don't attack the queen again with the other rook. Rather, we play the genius knight c6. That way we just remove the escaping square of the queen. Also f6 is guarded by the king, so the queen would just end up trapped basically if we took the pawn. So Hikaru definitely missed this, and now you can clearly see he's getting a bit uncomfortable. And so instead Hikaru decides to go for queen f6, which is actually pretty dangerous as well. Now Hikaru is just threatening to double the rooks and you know, go after the pawns, because the f pawn is pinned. Also maybe sacrifice the knight on h5, bringing the rooks as soon as possible to the attack. So pretty dangerous stuff. There's only a decent way to continue here. Ahmad really takes the tank and he grabs the queen and he finds the right move. Queen c7 is the only move to try and keep the advantage, or the position at least level, because it's the only move that allows queen to d8 to come next and really try to exchange the queens. Hikaru brings his rook to the e file, but like I said, queen to d8 comes, and yeah, Hikaru has to go back with the queen, right? He cannot really trade, so queen f4 is played. Now again, Ahmad has to see how he can improve the position and stop Hikaru's attack. Here he plays king to g8, and after h5, which he expected, he instantly goes g5, tries to keep the position closed, also attacks Hikaru's queen. So Hikaru's queen goes back to f3, and after a little think, Ahmad goes h6, just trying to consolidate, and instantly knight f1 by Hikaru, looking to rotate the knight and get back into some complications. But Ahmad doesn't give the legend a break. Rook c7 here, trying to infiltrate. Now if rook takes, knight comes in and it's a bit awkward defending everything. So Hikaru has to find something else. He thinks for a little bit and he pulls the rook back to the first rank. And again, Ahmad has to stop and think how he can make progress. Because, you know, he's up a pawn, but with such a fragile king, it's really easy to mess up against a guy like Hikaru. He really liked to trade queens, so exactly, king g7, preparing queen f6 and going for the queen trade. Now here Hikaru goes queen b3, hitting the knight and the rook, which seems, you know, a little bit dangerous, but queen f6 nevertheless, going for checkmate. Stockfish says this is brilliant. Hikaru obviously had seen this. He plays f3, just stopping the checkmate, and now Ahmad is forced to play rook to c4 because, you know, the rook and the knight were attacked, so rook c4 protects both. But now knight e3 by Hikaru, and it's getting completely chaotic. Now the rook has to stay in guard of the knight, so the rook takes the pawn, but instantly knight g4 by Hikaru. And what a move! What a move, because this attacks the queen, and you know, e5 is also taken, so The rook has to stay protected. What is Ahmad gonna do? So he decides to take the rook, because now if Hikaru is to take the queen, he can take the other rook intermediate check, and in the end of the day, he would have 2 rooks against the queen, and with these open files, it would definitely be advantageous for black. So Hikaru simply accepts the rook trade. Now we see queen f4, but all of a sudden the black king is weak. Queen f3 check, f6 blocking, but here Hikaru is back in charge. He has a forcing combination to win the game, so I encourage you to pause the video and try to figure it out. So in the game, Hikaru obviously didn't have a lot of time, but the move he played was rook to d4, forking the queen and the knight. So it seems to win a piece, but it actually blunders the advantage. Played knight takes e2, counter-attacking the queen, and black is able to escape the fork. So the right move was actually just going a3, as the knight is basically trapped. Knight a6 is the only move, but then queen c6 comes, and there's no dodging this fork. White here would just cleanly win the game. Anyways, the rook d4 seemed good enough, but Hikaru fell for the trap. After knight a2, we see queen d3, queen gives a check, king starts running, but now black picks up another pawn with check, and after king g3, f5 is played, looking to continue the attack. And you know, knight e3 is played, very tricky move. If f4, going for the fork, this opens the queen's diagonal, so this would be bad. Therefore, Ahmad plays queen c6, almost forcing a queen trade. And you can see Hikaru starting to get frustrated. If the queen comes off the board, this is surely gonna be a loss for Hikaru. Time is really ticking down, so as a last resort, he decides to give up the rook. Rook takes pawn, looking to open things up and try to get that so desired counterplay, but the Ahmad keeps his cool. After a check, he takes the knight, gives back the rook, and now he's just up a knight and some pawns. The nerves are now setting in, as he's clearly winning against one of the top players in the world. He gives some checks, he protects all his pawns, he brings the knight back, but now see queen d6, and after some checks by Hikaru, he actually loses all his queenside pawns. Clearly the nerves at play here, but he's still winning, so as long as he can get it together, he can do this. Hikaru keeps giving some checks. Hikaru now looking to infiltrate, pawn f4, queen h8 instantly, and now the knight advances. Hikaru keeps giving checks, and now the king will go for a big walk, trying to run away from all of the queen's checks. Hikaru very annoyed right now. Check on a1, king keeps running, keeps giving checks, checks everywhere, king goes to d4, and Hikaru clearly again very frustrated. He cannot allow a queen trade, so gives a check on a1, king keeps running, trying to find a safe haven, king c4, obviously not pawning the queen. Hikaru keeps checking, hoping for a reputation, queen to a3 check, keeping checks on the diagonal so the king doesn't run, queen b2 check, king a4, queen a1, king goes to b4, and the king now will start going back. Ahmad is doing this basically just to get some time. He's trying to think while making safe moves, but now the king is able to make his way to e5, and you know, Hikaru could keep checking on the diagonal, but eventually he's gonna run out of checks. So here Hikaru goes king to h2, you know, just dodges the knight g6s and the queen coming to the first rank. Ahmad goes for queen to d6, again hoping for a queen trade. We have queen back to a1, the knight blocks, queen goes to e1, king goes to f6, and Hikaru's queen is yet again trying to infiltrate. Let's see. Ahmad brings his knight to f4, we have queen to h8 check, king f7, queen h7 check, and the knight blocks on g7, and all of a sudden there are no checks. This configuration with the knight, king and queen and all adjacent is known to be a very good way for black to neutralize the queen, and you know, Hikaru is forced to wait, but this is exactly what the kid wanted. There are no more checks, so now he can really focus on improving his position. Hikaru has to pass the move, he has to go king h1, And now the kid is just gonna take his time. We have a bunch of random moves. Queen c6, king h1, queen d6, king h2, queen e6, but now queen e1 check followed by queen h4, picking up the pawn. Hikaru centralizes his queen. We have queen g6, queen c4 check, queen e6 blocking, queen c7 check, king g6, queen c2, knight f4, king h2, and this is trouble. And now the pawns start marching. We have h4, queen c1 stopping g4, but Ahmad cold-blooded plays g4 anyways, and Hikaru super frustrated. The pawn cannot be taken because of queen d6. This would pin the queen, would force a queen trade, so Hikaru goes for queen c3, and Ahmad plays g3, and now king h1. The king is so weak. Things are really going south for Hikaru. You can see by his face, by the nods, the game is about to be over. We have knight d4 by the kid. The knight cannot be taken because you then give a check, and yeah, the resulting endgame is lost, and otherwise the knight is just getting in. This would be trouble. So queen d3 check tried, giving a check, queen back to b1, blocking any checks in the first rank, but again the pawns are just moving. We have h4 and queen c1 by Hikaru. He knows it's over, but he cannot resign against such a lower rated opponent. After queen a1, queen e5, we have h3. He tries taking the pawn, but now g2, really an amazing combination, because after queen e2, queen takes pawn, there's gotta be forced mate here. He goes queen g3, queen takes pawn, king g1, and where's the mate? Where's the mate? He goes queen e3, king goes to h1, king goes forward, and this is just over. We have queen a7 trying to go for a miracle, but now queen e1, and after queen f2, king h1, queen f1, king has to go to h2, and knight f3 is mate. So this is how a 13-year-old kid from Azerbaijan managed to take down one of the world's best. Hope you guys enjoyed, hope you guys learned a thing or two, and catch you in the next one. Bye.